G'day guys, Marcus from Searching for Adventure, and we are back from our 4,000 kilometre Shakedown caravan trip here at home, and it's actually quite a humid, hot day here on the Gold Coast. And as you can see, I'm just sitting under my awning on the back of my car here at home, and I thought what I would do is put together just a very short video and do a bit of a post review on the caravan and the car and how everything went. So yeah, let's get into it. So probably first up, the first thing that I noticed towing a van, a lot more difficult than, as I'd mentioned previously, a lot more difficult than driving a bus as I used to, a rigid vehicle. So you certainly do notice the difference, especially on those rural roads where you're bouncing up and down. You can feel, the weight of the van behind you, and at times it does feel like the front of the car is lifting up somewhat. But maybe, just talking about the car first, the Mazda BT50, mine's a 2019 model. I think it's the 3.2 litre turbo diesel. It's definitely a diesel. It's either a 3 or a 3.2 litre. I'm not that sure. I'm not that educated about those sorts of things. But anyway, the car ran really well. But what I will say is that the BT50 did struggle going up, the Toowoomba range, and also the Great Dividing Range down there in Victoria, and also coming up out of Tamworth, heading over the range up into Queensland. So certainly on those extended periods where you are on an incline, the BT50, it does have limited power, and I found that I was going, throwing it into manual mode, and then, I was holding probably 60 kilometres in third gear up those sort of extended hills. There's no way I could have been doing probably any sort of faster than that speed. And there were a couple of times where I did drop into second gear doing about 40 k's an hour, and the first one was heading up the Toowoomba range just west of Brisbane when we left, and probably could have kept it in third, and the revs were probably dropping below 2,000, but I popped it into second. And then the second time was out of Can River heading over towards Canberra on a couple of those steep climbs up over the range there, where I did pop it into second. So yeah, look, the Mazda BT50, as I said, it drove well, it handled well, but it does lack a bit of power. The van's probably 3.3, 3.4 tonne, give or take. So, there is a bit of weight going on there, and you certainly can feel it. Having said that though, on an open road with no incline, you almost would hardly know that the caravan is there. That's what I certainly did notice, especially on a freeway or a motorway in a built-up city or whatever. On the sort of more remote roads, yeah, the van's there. As I said before, you do feel the caravan and car kind of articulating a little bit when you get on those bumpy sections. But really at no stage did I find that never felt that I was, unsafe or got into a situation where I thought this is a little hairy or anything like that whatsoever. And even with the van and heading down the Newell, which is a major truck route between Melbourne and Brisbane, I guess, and further north. We must have passed 1,000 trucks, and not once did the caravan sway or the car, feel uneasy. So in terms of, the BT50 towing the van, there were some positives there as well. Another great thing with the setup that I've got here, I had the fridge in here, I've got the drawers. Don't necessarily need that extra fridge with a large one in the caravan, but it certainly was handy on the trip. Basically just had, the beers in the fridge and some soft drinks and some water, and it was handy to have that here. And clearly these, the drawer systems were super handy, whenever you needed something. Might have been the drill or whatever it was, it's really easy access. So I think having a drawer system, or even if you didn't have a drawer system but had some organised, heavy duty containers or something, That's certainly going to be a positive, I would think, travelling with the van. So in terms of fuel usage, I've had a few people ask me about the fuel usage. So van about 3.3 tonne, 3.4 tonne, cars weighing about 3.3 tonne. So there is a bit of weight going on there, and overall we used about 21 litres per 100 kilometres, which I thought was reasonably well. The BT50 here around town, when I'm driving without the van, I do a lot of city driving, if you want to call it, not a lot of extended driving. I do about 15 litres per 100, give or take, 16 litres per 100. It's a lot of stop and go where I travel. But with the van, the whole trip, yeah, 21 litres per 100. So I thought that was quite reasonable, given the fact that we did do, you know, a reasonable amount of driving, you know, through the Great Dividing Range, and also some areas of rural New South Wales, heading up inclines and those sorts of things. So there were quite a few times throughout the trip where we were, you know, the rev range was getting above that 2,500, up to 3,000, and sometimes above that 3,000 rev range. So, and then, as I said before, there were a few times where I did have to drop it back into second gear, doing about 40 k's an hour and probably revving at about 2,500 or so, or might have been a little bit less, I can't remember. But by and large though, I think 21 litres per 100 was pretty good for the BT50 pulling the van. Tyre pressures in the car were pretty consistent. Just would check them each morning before we left, and also I would check the Caravan tyre pressures, and you know, depending on the time of the day and the temperature, they would fluctuate somewhat, but didn't have any issues with the tyres. We had no blowouts on this trip, which is always a positive. But as you would have seen though, back a couple of episodes, we did get a screw in one of the tyres in the Caravan. Now I don't know where we picked up the screw, whether it was in the Caravan park or somewhere else, but when I did notice that, it was as simple as, you know, doing what I had read to do all your little checks before you head out of a morning. And I think it was the night before we were leaving Canberra, and I thought I would just go and check all the tyre pressures. And yeah, this front one down here was at 32 psi, all the rest were at 65. So that was probably a perfect example of doing one of those mundane stupid checks, and came across a tyre that was, you know, half the pressure of the other one. So, and then found the screw, so took that out. But it was probably a really good learning exercise for us, because I mean, we looked like, you know, it was amateur hour in the Caravan park, because there were a family right opposite us, 15 metres away, and they had a group of people there, 20 people, all watching us change that tyre. So it was a little embarrassing. And then what was more embarrassing is when we went to go grab the jack, it was brand new. I mean, in the plastic. So, but you know, it was a really good learning experience, I think. Learning how the jack worked, and also changing the tyre on the van. So, kind of glad it happened, to be honest. And I've actually still got the tyre on the back of the van. I need to take that and get that fixed up. Thing I would say about the Mazda BT50, and it's probably the same with most sort of Australian dual cab utes, if you have got teenage kids, which we have, there isn't a lot of space in the back. And I've got those seat organiser Duvalakis that go on the back of the seat there for the kids, so they can put all their bits and pieces in, and it literally leaves no room whatsoever. So it is really squashy in the back. I think it's going to be relatively the same for most dual cabs, whether it's a Ford Ranger or a Mazda BT50 or a Hilux or a Nissan Navara. That might have a little bit more room, I don't know, but that was probably one uncomfortable feature for the kids while they were in the back. And I guess given the fact that these Aussie dual cab utes, I think most of them have leaf springs in the rear, it is quite bouncy and bumpy and not a comfortable ride. I guess that's probably another comment on the Mazda. It does feel strong because it has had the levels upgrade to 3.5 tonne. So it does feel very strong, when I hitched the van up, I didn't do a measurement to see how much it dropped, but just looking at it, I didn't notice that it had dropped any whatsoever. So the car certainly is very sort of strong and rigid, but I think that's a bit of a compromise when you want to carry weights, I guess, with these type of utes, having a payload of a ton or more. So yeah, I think the negative from you know, kids travelling with you in a car like this is space, and also it is a fairly rough ride in the back. Rightio, so in terms of the van, we had no real major issues or problems with the Caravan itself, apart from the screw in the tyre. I don't believe we had any other real issues or problems, which is good. We had there were quite a few, or I think 3 or 4 camps where we didn't use the power, so we just used our lithium batteries. So there's 300 amps of lithium, and I know it is a bit of overkill, but it's kind of nice having that extra battery there if you need it. And we did run our aircon there a couple of times, an hour and a half, and no problems whatsoever with the inverter, which is a 2000 watt inverter in the Caravan. So I think one thing that I'd probably do differently on the next trip is when I was filling up the water tanks that are in the Caravan. So we've got 3 95 litre water tanks, I think they are, 95 or 100 litres. And I was finding that I was making sure they were all topped up before we left to go on the next day. And then we would drive and get to a caravan park, and then I would then go and put in mains water. And sort of defeats the purpose really of having all this extra weight in the car in the Caravan when we didn't really need it. So I think that's a little lesson learnt. We weren't travelling to remote areas and needed all that water in the van. However, I would still have one tank full, because we would pull over on the side of the road and, you know, we could use the toilet and fill up our water bottles or whatever. So certainly want to have some water in there. But I think that in our next trip, which we are heading away in about a week and a half or so, there's no need to fill up all those water tanks. That's probably something I would do differently next time, and can, you know, easily cut 200 kilos of weight right out of the van right there. Certainly a feature that I would get if you can afford to get, and that is the airbag system on your Caravan. Now I think we paid about 5,000 bucks, so it's not cheap, but apparently it does give a much smoother ride, which I definitely noticed driving on those rural roads and on the highways. There were times it was even almost hard to know that there was a Caravan on the back. It rode really, really well, especially on some of the bumps. But yeah, I think certainly if you can afford it, it is just an awesome option. Highly recommend. It's pretty good. The great option, of course, was the barbecue slide. So we definitely got some use out of the little Ziegler barbecue. In terms of the power on the van, the 300 lithium of batteries that we had on board, most times we were just plugging in. We got a powered site. That was just easy for us because it was our first trip. We kind of wanted to just test the water, so we thought that was probably a better thing to do, get a powered site, and then we could use the power, but we could unplug and then have a bit of a play with the systems on board. So we tried out the air conditioning unit, and it ran no problems at all, straight off the batteries, starting up and running. We did try and test it out and threw on the microwave, and then the circuit then did trip, obviously, but everything worked really well. The solar on the roof, we've got 700 and, what do we got? 170 times 4, 340. That's so we've got 680 watts of solar on board, and you know, obviously as we were driving, we were putting in 25 amps from the alternator into the batteries from the car. So look, the batteries were always charged, so there wasn't an issue for us in terms of power in the van. Guys, that's a wrap here for the review of our first holiday in our Caravan with the BT50 and the On the Move Truck Series 2. Hope you've enjoyed this short little clip, our post review of the trip. We had a fantastic time for our first time holidaying in a Caravan as a family, and can't wait to get back out there and do a few more trips. And we have got a couple more trips planned in the next couple of months. And you know, because Ali and I both work full time, we're not touring or doing the big lap like a lot of people are. So we haven't got that luxury, but we are going to try and get away in the van every couple of months if we can. And yeah, as I said, we have got a couple of pretty cool trips coming up. So guys, this is our 10th episode also. So thanks for everyone for starting to watch our channel. And if you do enjoy what you're seeing, hit the subscribe button and the like button. It's much appreciated. So yeah, until the next trip, we'll see you next time.